Well, hey, good evening to you. How is everybody? Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. Waiting on me. I see you over there, Bo. How you doing? Good Wednesday evening to you guys. Hope you're all well. I am. I'm doing just great. I had a lot of fun last night on Imperial Ramblings with Bo and with Zalin, and we talked a lot about AD&D. We kind of took the 10,000 foot view and just answered random questions and comments, and it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you guys had a lot of fun listening. Subscribe to Imperial Ramblings. It is where you want to be. Let me see. Let me copy this. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, first of all, shame on you. Check out the Imperial Ramblings channel. So I'm going to paste this here real quick. But go give them a listen. If you like tabletop, if you like painting, if you like all that kind of news and so forth and etc., you should definitely play them. Vinny, with a question right out of the chute, says, have I played or read through Dave Arneson's first fantasy campaign by Judges Guild? I have not. That has been on my to-do list for a long time. Thank you, Vinny. Vinny, not a Bartolo. I think I hit it right on the head there. But Vinny, I have not. I will check it out. I'm always checking out new stuff. And it's a lot of fun. IR says, it was excellent. You're the best guest we've ever had. Ha ha ha. I guess I am, aren't I? Let's see. What's going on RPG related? Oh, so I guess Wizards has finally announced 5th edition. It's official. Or 5th and a half edition, 5.5. Or 6th edition. So, yeah, I mean, I don't care. And I thought it was kind of hilarious that the announcement video made by someone, I don't know if they work for Wizards or if they just had official permission to talk about it, but I just thought it was kind of funny that they announce a new edition. The guy making the announcement, he had like a shirt on over shirt, but you could very clearly see that whatever shirt he was wearing that was kind of peeking over in the counter was a piece of AD&D merch. Not classic, not like the stuff that you could buy in the back of the catalogs that came with your TSR box sets back in the day, but like something they had, 80stees.com print up or some shit. I don't know. Maybe you went to a t-shirt shop and said, put this book cover on this t-shirt for me. I don't know. But I just thought it was kind of funny because 5e is not for me. All right. It's not for me. And 5th edition 0.5 or 6th or whatever they're calling it will be less for me. I'm just going to be over here and I'm going to keep on trucking with OD&D and AD&D. It really bothers me that OD&D and AD&D are firmly in the clutch of Wizards of the Coast. I mean, it wouldn't not be, right? But I mean, it's like having to live with the fact that Macklemore owns, if this was the case, it's not true, but like if Macklemore owned the entire catalog of Led Zeppelin music, just like every song, every album, all belonged to Macklemore. And while you could still buy Led Zeppelin albums digitally, like, all of his future releases would be like ripping digital samples and dropping them into his songs. So, yeah, I just don't give a shit about 5.5. And the fact of the matter is that Wizards wants to be so hard on the path that they're on, that, you know, they stick content warnings on shit, and it's just, guys, buy PDFs and shoot them over to Lulu and get copies of the books done up, because at the rate things are going, I don't think the continuation of OD&D and AD&D is really going to be on Wizards' plate, or at least unexpurgated, unadulterated, unfiltered. I really think it's going to be a matter of time before they say, we just can't fix this. There's just no excusing this. There's bare breasts. There's the objectification of women. There's colonialism. A lot of istophobia here, so this is going to have to go. Sorry, grognards. And every book is going to fail their purity test, and then they're going to say, oopsie. But we'll be releasing a 5e compatible version of Expedition of the Barrier Peaks. You can buy that. They're not going to leave them alone, Vinny. I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. They're either going to delete the catalog to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons in a couple of years, or they're going to wait till that passes and then start heavily editing them. So what I'm telling you is, first of all, the collector's market is stupid. It made a little bit of sense when we were talking about wood grain OD&D sets, orange copies of B3, tournament versions of Lost Sojkonth, Dungeon Master's guides with printing errors, true first AD&D books, things like that. Now, just like your moon face logo, your Moon Man logo, or the Procter & Gamble logo, as I call it, late print run player's handbooks, monster manuals, and Dungeon Master's guide, and just dog-eared, beaten up anything modules are really starting to ramp up in price. So I hate it because it's giving WotC money. But seriously, go buy the PDFs of stuff that you've always wanted. If it's print on demand and you want to get print on demand, get it printed on demand. If not, get the PDFs. Find a local print shop that'll print them up to your taste. Or even use Lulu or something like that, some other online printing service. Get the stuff printed. Because I hate to be, Chicken Little running around saying the sky is falling, guys. But I don't know how much more slack they're going to give problematic versions of D&D. And with a 5.5 announced and the direction they've skidded lately with the Tumblr art and, magical high school prom source books and shit like that, I would just expect that they'll just shutter that effort sooner than later. Well, good for you, Vinny. That's the way you do it, bud. That's the way you do it. Yeah, exactly. They're not buying prom night at Harry Potter College. Better squeeze out another corset. Paul's got it. Or squeeze into a corset. I don't know. Hello, Chris. Greetings to you over there on YouTube. I'm just extremely cynical about the future of D&D. I've always been cynical about the future of D&D, though. I'm not going to lie. They very much want to fire AD&D fans as their customers. I just think it's a matter of time. And what better opportunity now than either just before or just after the 50th? And he says, I want the softcover booklets, but the collector's market prices are foolishly steep. Softcover booklets of what? What softcover booklets? Hello, Damien. Good to see you. Damien. Oh, what else is going on? Oh, I know what I was going to mention. We had talked about this a few months ago. Okay, so Jim Ward, a few months ago, put his manuscript copy of Deities and Demigods up on eBay. And in a very short span of time, the price skyrocketed on it, which is very good. This is a matter of collecting that I fully support. I even threw in a token bid of like $50 just to be cute, because I knew it was going to, just to say I bid on it. So like $50, click. You have been outbid. $100, click. You have been outbid. Yeah, I stopped at like $125. Well, when the dust settled, the price on Jim's Deities and Demigods manuscript was north of $11,000, and it still had lots of time to go. Jim took it down for a couple of reasons. But the primary reason that he took it down for was he was not sure initially if that manuscript was his actual original manuscript. And as it happens, it was not. And he felt that it was being sold under false pretenses, because he didn't want somebody to think they were getting something that came right off his typewriter. What it was is it was a mimeographed copy. He asked, I almost said Wizards of the Coast. He asked TSR to give him a copy of his manuscript back, and that's what they gave him. They did not give him his actual typed manuscript back. They gave him a copy of it back. Which, I mean, it's still the manuscript for Deities and Demigods. All right? It's not like there's dozens of them floating around. There's one, and he has it. So that it has actually been relisted. So if you're feeling froggy, oh, that's a big link. I don't think that'll go. Yeah. Let me see. I don't know if this link will work. I'm going to stick this up. We'll see. Does that open? Yes, that opens the item. And he has other things too. He has some other stuff up there, like he's got his cover sketches for Metamorphosis Alpha. He has his original manuscript for Metamorphosis Alpha, and it's currently sitting at $6,000. So if you click on that link that I just pasted, and I'll give it to you, folks on Facebook, I will slide this over there to you guys as well. Where is it? There we go. So yeah, if you follow that link, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or wherever, you can see a lot of Jim's other stuff that he has for sale. And these are preservation-worthy items of interest. This is not just, oh, well, here's here's a monster manual that got bought at Toys R Us in 1987. Opening bid $401. It's not stupid like that. This is actual role playing game history, and if you want to be a part of it, now I'm not shilling for Jim. Jim's a great guy, and this stuff is incredibly rare. All right, so you should check it out. And he says, white box and supplemental books. Yeah, I got my OD&D collection in the early 2000s before Gary passed away, and I actually did gangbusters. I have, and so here's the story for those of you who might not have heard this. A friend of the family, well, a coworker of my wife's who was a friend of the family, called my wife and said, hey, I was at a Friends of the Library sale in Gainesville, and I got some little D&D books. Do you think Bill would like them? And long story short, it was the first and third books from the OD&D box set, and then like I read the Tom Moldvay edit of the basic set was what he was using for other things, or what whoever was using. But she said, yeah, I think he loved those. And then she called me and told me, and I was like, oh my God, yes. And so I was on pins and needles till we saw him again. It was like 10 days later. And she brings these things home. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So those were my first two OD&D books. But over time, back then in 2004, 4-ish, I was able to buy up at 20, 30 bucks a piece all of the middle book, Monsters and Treasures, and then each one of the individual supplements. One day I was lamenting the fact that the Greyhawk supplement that I had bought and gotten autographed by Gary and by Rob Kuntz was very delicate. The rusty staples had almost torn through the cover, and we were playing a lot of OD&D at the table at the time. So my group banded together and bought me a copy of Supplement 1 Greyhawk. So I had two. And then I got a third. I don't even remember where I got it. I think I did some legwork or a swap or a trade or with somebody over at the Akium. That stuff needs to be in a museum. Well, if Justin Lanassa wants to buy it all or wants to bid on it all and gets it all for his museum, then maybe he can get it for his museum. But, so yeah, I got a third copy from somebody over at the Akium, and I'm sorry, I don't remember now. I bought a copy of Chainmail online. It wasn't a lot of money. I think I paid like $30 for it. But then one day my wife and I were at a War Games convention where I was running some AD&D, and one of the guys who had like a garage sale kind of table, they had a vendor's area that was basically the perimeter of the largest gaming room. And I go over, and this guy's got a lot of War Game rules. He had 4 or 5 shrink-wrapped copies of Chainmail. And he wanted $10 a piece for them. And he said if I bought them all, he would take the price down to $7 a piece. So I bought those, I gave away one as a gift, and I sold the rest of them off. But I still have my copy of Chainmail. And then around that same time, let's say around 2005, I found a used bookstore through Adol that had, for the princely sum of $80, I think, an OCE white box set. So I bought that. Now, those are worth hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So I've just got a stupid amount of OD&D original booklets. You got Swords and Scrolls. Yeah, Swords and Scrolls is interesting. Yeah, I got Swords and Scrolls and Greyhawk. I've shown them if you follow me on YouTube and so on, or on Facebook rather, you've seen the pictures of all the stuff I've got. You've seen it all. But it's too late. I've seen it all. Hello, Hickington007. Paul says, print a copy of your favorite module. Run it at a local store. After completion, hand it off to your players and tell them to run it at home. That is a fine idea. I like this idea. I approve of this idea. This idea gets the thumbs up. I would put a thumbs up next to it, but I don't know how to do that. So in other good news, guys, we are at 796 subscribers. We are 4 subscribers away from 800 subs on YouTube. And what does that mean? If you're new, if you're just coming along here, like, I don't know, and I'm not putting you on the spot, Hickington007, but if you are, or rather, since you are here, if you are not subscribed, please click that subscribe button, because when we hit 1,000 subs, which is coming real soon, when we hit 1,000 subs, this vast high-tech studio you see before you will become a convention center, and I will run a role-playing game convention. I will run OD&D, I will run AD&D, I will run new stuff, Tales from the Loop. I will run, which, put a bookmark there. We're going to come back to that. I will run Gamma World, all kinds of stuff. I will do it for you guys. And if other people want to sign up to run games, we'll figure out a sign-up sheet, We'll make it happen. But I will do that for you guys to celebrate hitting 1,000 subs on the YouTube channel. So Hickington, AWIG, all of D&D's treasures can be found on the high seas. Now, I know AWIG is subbed. I know most of you guys are subbed. I'm just picking on you, Hickington, because I don't think we've seen you on the stream before. But hello, I hope we're not putting you on the spot. I've got one OD&D book, the last book, Swords and Spells. I bought that book for $1. That's great. I love to hear that. I love to hear the stories of people who ganked classic role-playing games for next to nothing. That makes me happy. That makes me exceptionally happy. Vinny says, I'm down for that. Well, then get over to YouTube and subscribe, young man. Or woman. I don't judge. So I mentioned Tales from the Loop. I like Tales from the Loop. Tales from the Loop is a good, fun, lightweight game. Its system mates up to it perfectly. It's a fun game. Apparently, as soon as Stranger Things dropped, overnight the intelligentsia of story gaming coined a phrase, the kids on bikes genre. And there's an actual RPG called Kids on Bikes, and it's all, it's like your kids in the 80s, but supernatural stuff. But as far as I know, Tales from the Loop is the firstest and the bestest. With that said, I'm not a big fan of Free League. Aliens the RPG is okay. Free League, though, I think they ruined Twilight 2000. They stuck a bunch of id Paul in Twilight 2000 and just fucking garbage. Title was a show too. Yes, there was. So a little bit of info about Tales from the Loop. There is a science fiction artist. Well, I shouldn't really. He's an artist. From Sweden, Simon Stålenhag. And his art juxtaposes very simple pastoral or suburban scenes of life with surreal images of technology run amok. So you might have a bunch of kids like all holding Atari 2600 joysticks in the foreground, but the cables run to like just a sphere hovering anti-gravity wise a couple hundred yards away, just hovering in the middle of a field. And it's this superimposition, this juxtaposition of these different images that helped Free League devise a role-playing game around a futuristic what if. And I will say probably Tales from the Loop sort of pushed them a little bit towards that. The favorite scenario that I have to run, called Polybius is equally inspired by Stranger Things as it is fueled by Tales from the Loop. And it's a fun game. If you want to role play an adolescent you, it can be a lot of fun. So yeah, there's a Tales from the Loop role-playing game, and there's a Tales from the Loop series, which is not nearly as good as Stranger Things. I watched the first episode, and I just thought it was a snooze fest. It was kind of this time travel Mobius strip kind of thing that I don't know. I may go back and watch it. It's on Amazon. It was one of Amazon's things that they just threw buckets of money at to be better than Netflix, to out Netflix, and out Stranger Things. But, and again, I didn't really ask for their shitty opinion of my country to be served up in the new iteration of Twilight 2000. But there we are. And it's just full of the most idiotic things. So I'll stick with a clunky, janky rule system from GDW, thank you, and not worry about Twilight 2000 from Free League. With that said, Free League is apparently releasing, or has released, a Blade Runner role-playing game, and it'll likely use their same system. That's kind of neat, but I don't really see as there's anything in Blade Runner that you couldn't do, that you couldn't just use like an extant system to play with if you wanted to play a Blade Runner setting. I mean, you could use Cyberpunk 2020. It's what it says on the tin. You could use you could strip down Hero System. You could use Cyber Hero from Hero System. I just don't feel like you need to have a Blade Runner specific role-playing game. Now, if I thought there was going to be a ton of source books that were accurately that had accurate Blade Runner lore in them, not thought up by Free League, I might check it out. They put out a trailer today. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Let me see if I can find this. You know what? Here, let's just do this. I'll send you guys the trailer. It's not... it's kind of one of those, we took our paintings and then did like just a little bit of animation of like elements of the paintings moving ever so slightly. And of course, Free League's not going to be able to license Vangelis's music. Let's see. I feel like I got too much stuff open. So if you want to give that a look. So I'm pretty leery of anything Free League's going to be putting out right now. I know it's going to use the same system that's at the core of the Aliens RPG, of Tales from the Loop. Tales from the Loop actually has an RPG sequel called Stories from the Flood, and Twilight 2000. It's going to be that core. That's their D20 system, which comes down to a dice pool system and conditions that impact your dice pool. And then they have a combat system. Tales from the Loop does not have a combat system, which goes to show how little they know about American kids in the 1980s. Like, what is literally the first thing that Will does when he's alone and he hears something before he's dragged off into the Upside Down? He gets a gun and starts loading it. Guys, you didn't even do you know how 13-year-olds function? You put a bunch of them under stress and trap them in a small space. Somebody's going to punch somebody else in the nose. So not having a combat system in your damn role-playing game was a mistake. But I get it. You don't want the game to degenerate into a bullet fest. It's supposed to have moments where it can be like E.T., where it's kind of light and sweet and so on. And, little Billy's focus item shouldn't be a gat. I get it. At the same time, but regardless of that, the other games, Stories from the Flood, obviously Aliens, obviously Twilight 2000, and almost certainly Blade Runner, all have combat systems, or will have combat systems. But deep down at its core, the system, and I don't know what this is called. If somebody knows what this is called and wants to tell me, that's absolutely fine. But you've got an attribute, and then you've got skill in that attribute. Or you've got skills based on that attribute. So, if you're trying to hack into the school computer to find out what happened to Tommy, why hasn't Tommy been around? But the teachers act like they barely even know who you're talking about. So let's say you've got brains, you've got three brains. You've got a 3 in your brain stat, and then a 2 in your hacking stat. Well, your game master might say, yeah, okay, so it's a normal check, and you roll a handful of dice, and every 6 is a success. And a normal check requires 1 success. A difficult requires 2, and so on. So, I roll a handful of D6s, I roll a 6, there, I got 1 success. And that's all I needed. Now, if I had rolled like all 6s, I could apply those 6s to later tasks that might involve that skill or that stat. And it's just that simple. Now, if the Evil Corp guys had just tried to run my character off the road and he's trying to run away and hide, so he's stressed out. He might even be injured. So it might be a move check. And I've got kind of a nerdy, bookish kid. And I've only got, 1 point of move. And I've got a physical stat of 2. So that's 3d6. And I'm trying to run through the woods away from these guys. But they just caused my bike to wreck. So it may be now that I have, condition hurt, So if you got a condition, you got to take a dice off. So now I'm only throwing 2d6. I got a 5 and a 6. So maybe I did evade them. Or if the game master was being particularly cruel, he might have said, well, it's very difficult because they're grown-ups and they've been riding in cars. You're a kid, you've been riding uphill on your bike and you just took a tumble. I need 2 successes. Well, a 5 and a 6, that's not it, And there's other factors that can play, but that's essentially it. And when you have a chance to talk to an adult who really means something to you, can be a parent, a teacher, the guy that works at the comic shop, if you can spend time with them, you can take conditions off, like scared, hurt, angry, frustrated, all that. You can slowly take conditions off, heal up. It's a really simple, elegant system. It's even more simple than I'm making it sound. But the fact that they couldn't keep their fucking sticky little hands off of the Twilight 2000 storyline. And when they got called out by playtesters, they just said, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. None of this is final. None of this is final. Well, when Twilight 2000 by Free League came out, yes, it was. They didn't change shit. They lied to their playtesters, many of whom were diehard Twilight 2000 fans, a couple of whom I know on an internet basis who had written supplements, like fan supplements that were so good that like Mark Miller and other guys, other former GDW players said, this is really good. This is Twilight 2000 canon now. And they lied to them and they told them, yeah, don't worry about this stuff. We're going to change all this. All this political stuff we're shoveling in here, it's not going to stay. Well, joke was on the playtesters. Joke was on the playtesters. Little A-Wig's focus was a gat. But if you can look past that and you can forgive them, or if you just don't give a shit about Twilight 2000, or if your politics are absolutely fine with what they put in there, then pick up Blade Runner. I mean, I'll give it a look. I'll definitely give it a look. If it's endorsed by Ridley Scott and by some of the other people, and it's not just like, well, we just bought that license and are using it, I'll do more than give it a look. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. New question. Please tell me Twilight 2000 has nothing to do. Okay. Okay, IR. Hang on a sec. I'm going to step over to the bookshelf. Actually, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Let me see if I can just pull this up. I'll just put this on Still Store. So... God damn it. First hit that comes up in Google is the fucking Free League version. Good Lord. Let me see if I can make this open up. Nope. I don't want that. So while I'm looking for a good image of... Oh, it's available on drive-thru. Well, here, I'll just put the drive-thru link up and you guys can check that out while I talk about it. So to answer your question, Twilight 2000... Twilight 2000 was written in the 1980s. And it was written in the early 1980s. I think 1984 to 85 was when it was developed. But the premise of Twilight 2000 is that the Cold War does not end in the early 1990s. Because they had no reason to believe it was going to end. The writers at GDW. It's funny to think like how the CIA and the Rand Corporation knew that the Soviet Union didn't have more than 10 years left. And I would read speculative fiction that would be talking about like the Soviet Union like well into the 21st century and so on. But the premise of Twilight 2000 is that the Cold War doesn't end by the 1990s. In the early 1990s, a resurgent China, hungry for more resources, starts exploiting the border in Siberia, in the Soviet Far East. Now, in real life, the Chinese and the Soviets have had like brigade-sized firefights against each other. Everybody thinks, oh, the Chinese are communist, the Soviets are communist, they must have been best buddies. That wasn't the case. I will get back to you on that, Paul. I see you there. So this is them taking that to its next logical step, which is divisional-sized battles that erupt into a full-scale war. Now, China has got more than enough people to pour into this border conflict that's going on. When the Soviets roll the Chinese up, though, because, you know, NATO, military technology-wise, the Soviets are to China as NATO is to the USSR, or to the Warsaw Pact. So the Soviets start rolling up the Chinese, and the West, perfectly content to sit back and watch the two biggest communist governments in the world destroy each other, they don't want it to end too soon, so they start funneling arms and assistance into the Chinese. The Soviets lose, like, whole divisions in a day are being consumed by the war in the East. And eventually, the Soviets tell their Warsaw Pact allies, look, you know, in the good old name of fraternal socialism, we're going to need you guys to supply some troops. So they start stripping back garrisons in Poland and East Germany and Romania and Bulgaria, and I'm sure I've forgotten a few places, Latvia, Lithuania, so on. They start sending these troops into the Far East. I disparaged communism. hey, Volcano God. But, so, you know, all these countries are seeing their soldiers basically being trucked to the Far East and dying by the tens of thousands every day. It's like medieval, how barbaric it is out there. The East German government goes to the West German government and says, look, we're not sending our young men to China to die for the Kremlin. We're going to reunite. We will place Soviet troops in East Germany under arrest and reunite our two countries. So the governments of East and West Germany in one evening form and refuse and begin to fight against the Soviets. The Soviets react. You might predict the Soviets would. And, you know, the good old Third Shock Army comes steamrolling in to Germany, except they get pancaked. And NATO rolls them back up through Poland. Well, the Soviets realize that they have, you know, there are NATO troops in the Ukraine. There are NATO troops up along the Baltic coast. The Rodina is in danger. So they stage this Maskarovska, this deception where they convince the Chinese that they're falling back in disarray on both fronts and begin to withdraw in the east. In pursuit of these imagined armies falling back, the Chinese take to the road and the Soviets empty about half of their strategic stockpile of nuclear weapons right on top of them. They basically smite China from the face of the earth. They utterly scourge the PRC. And then they turn around and plow into, with what's left of their armies from the Far East, get them to the West as quickly as they can, and start attacking NATO divisions that have had unprecedented success by early 1997. But NATO's not having any of it. Now, some members of NATO have broken away. Italy and France, notably, have said the whole point of NATO was to defend against a Soviet attack, not go attack the Soviet Union. So NATO at this point is Canada, the UK, reunited Germany, Belgium, Norway, and I think Spain. But I could be wrong about Spain. So, yeah, they come just steamrolling the Russians and rolling them back. And a couple of days after Thanksgiving in 1997, seeing that there may be an American flag hoisted over the Kremlin in a couple of months because they're not making the mistake the Germans made. Even after use of tactical nuclear weapons, NATO is still steamrolling forward. They're not stopping. The Soviets are like, fuck it, and use the majority of the rest of their warheads on the United States and allies. So at that point, what happens is a very interesting socio-political military situation called a broken-backed war. Both sides have been destroyed strategically because, of course, the West retaliates against the USSR. Both sides have been strategically destroyed, but tactically in the field, there's still armies fighting each other. The war continues to grind forward for 3 years. No new factories churning out aircraft parts, smart munitions. They hit most of the advanced dock facilities. So the U.S. and other NATO navies that aren't destroyed but are damaged are still effectively out of the game. Divisions that were once 15,000 people strong and contained 300 or 400 tanks are down to like 1 tank and 300 men on both sides. So the war becomes a very localized affair in Germany and in Poland. The U.S. spends most of the winter of 1999 and early spring of 1999 consolidating fuel stocks, repairing as many tanks as possible, getting as many troops in field from the tiny, tiny trickle of reinforcements still coming across the Atlantic. And they order an offensive into central Poland to basically smash into central Poland, turn north, cut off the Soviets in there, and claim the entire Baltic coast for Germany for its fishing grounds and for shale oil production to help get Germany back on its feet. And it works during the first part of the offensive. The Soviets held on to a strategic reserve of a pre-war division size in tanks and fuel. And that smashes into the NATO forces, destroying them. But both sides, the 5th Division and the Soviet division, beat each other to death. So Twilight 2000 starts in the summer of 2000. Your team, your characters in Twilight 2000 are the remnants of a unit that was thrown into the fight in central Poland. The Soviets are all over the place trying to refuse and pursue the remnants of the NATO division as they fall back into Germany, but you're cut off. And you start out with a set amount of equipment, but after that, it's just scrounging and surviving. That, IR, and aren't you glad you asked, is Twilight 2000. Nothing to do with sparkly vampires. It is a phenomenal story and a phenomenal role-playing game. I like it a lot. And the more I talk about it, the more I wish I could go back and kickstart my game. Not Kickstarter like money, but kickstart my fallow Twilight 2000 campaign and play some more of it, because it's really good. It lets you get a military style feel, like, you know, drive tanks, even occasionally fly helicopters, fight and all that. But because your units are so scattered, there's no command structure left anymore. You're literally just trying to get back home in any way possible. And from that point forward, are you really the U.S. Army anymore? Are you really part of the Army? Or are you just some guys trying to survive? You know, it's like, by the latter half of Mad Max, was Mad Max a cop anymore? And he certainly wasn't by the Road Warrior. And by Thunderdome, that was just a part of his life. And of course, with Fury Road, that poor Max was just utterly broken. But you're kind of in that step after Mad Max and before the Road Warrior. So your unit that you and the other characters, you can try and hang together and fight the Soviets. Or maybe you just find a valley somewhere relatively untouched by the war, and you just, you know, you park your tank, you run its engine to keep a few car batteries that you scavenge charged so you can have some electricity every now and again. You pile your uniforms inside and just pretend to be just civilians from that point forward. You keep a few farmers around safe with your light, you know, your light machine guns and so on. Maybe that's what your party wants to do. It is a massive sandbox adventure, and there are some amazing adventure modules written for it. And now I'm going to shut up and look at some of your things. A-Week says, then the French break physics and explore the Milky Way. Yes. So GDW, Games Designers Workshop, also made Traveler, and they made a game called 2300 AD that kind of bridges where we are now with Traveler. Well, 2300 AD makes allusions to the Twilight War. So by 2300, you know, it's 300 years later. The U.S. has kind of climbed out of the, you know, destruction of all of its major cities and a lot of its infrastructure and the death of nearly half of its population. But it's not a superpower anymore. France, one of the nations that broke away from NATO, with the exception of Le Havre and Paris, was untouched by nuclear weapons. So, and a bunch of their concerns in Africa, including oil production, kept going. So if you live in France, just not in Paris or in the Le Havre area, you know, things might be hunky-dory for you. You know, just life just kind of continues on with some minor interruptions here and there. So by 2300 AD, the French have established themselves as the superpower in the world. Have I ever played Morrow Project? No, but I want to. Morrow Project is like Twilight 2000 meets, I don't know if this is something you guys would know. But there was a series, very short-lived, made it into a few. It was generally like there was a pilot and an episode or two that were eventually just made into a TV movie. Let me see if I can find it. But it starred John Saxon. He had a leading role. Television, let's see. There we go. Planet Earth. And it was by Gene Roddenberry. So he plays a man from the 20th century who's cryonically frozen, comes back, and is like he's reawoken into a world that he never created. It's, there's been a societal collapse, but there's a team of scientists trying to fix the Earth, and they have a fairly advanced base that they operate out of. But the majority of the world around is savage. That's kind of like Morrow Project. The Morrow Project, basically, a researcher, an inventor, a philanthropist, like an Elon Musk type guy by the name of Morrow. Fallout meets Twilight 2000. Yes, Fallout meets Twilight 2000, Paul. Thank you. And I am still going to answer your question. At least, yeah, your comment about Ridley Scott and so on. But I feel like I can go on for a little while tonight. This may be a longer stream than just an hour. But yeah, so in Morrow Project, this guy basically, he says, hey, look, all of my computer predictions show that there's going to be a devastating nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union in this many years. So I'm going to set up these, what are called bolt holes, all over the country, filled with teams of soldiers, scientists, doctors, with enough supplies and a mission, basically a mission list. Go to this city and help these people. Go to this city and help these people. Go to this city and help these people. And 10 years after nuclear war, they'll come out of cryonic sleep. They'll get into their equipment, their armored cars and tanks and whatnot, and spread out and start rebuilding America. It is strongly implied that Morrow himself was a time traveler and knew what was going to happen. But there is a terrorist attack at Prime Base, the central hub of the Morrow Project. And the computer systems fail. And instead of 10 years after nuclear war, it's 150 years after nuclear war that your teams start to wake up. So it is a very different post-apocalypse Earth that you wake up in. Some people are living like it was the 1850s. They've been reduced to moldboard plow and horses. Maybe a couple of people have, lever action guns or muzzle loaders, matchlocks, that kind of thing. Maybe they don't even have that. Maybe it's just, just clubs with chains wrapped around them. And then there are warlords who've managed to keep fuel, and they managed to create a legacy of the production of parts and so on to keep military vehicles running. And it is Twilight 2000 meets Gamma World meets Fallout. And once again, it's up to your party, your adventuring group, to decide whether or not you want to Sorry, there goes my phone. Who the fuck is calling me at 8:30 at night? Anyway. Shut up! I almost guarantee you that's a spam risk. But anyway, so yeah, in Morrow Project, you're kind of one-way time travelers. And you again, you have to decide what to do. Is the mission still on? Is the mission no longer valid? It's like, you wanted us to go to San Antonio and help the local authorities, treat radiation and chemical burn victims and so on. San Antonio is a lake. It got hit with a ground burst city buster, and that's filled in. And the radiation went away a long time ago, and it's now, there's like a fishing community of a few hundred people that live on the edge of it. Well, that was our job. Now what? There is a DOS game in the early 90s. I would love there to be like an updated modern Twilight 2000 game that uses like, I don't know. I kind of feel like Far Cry 3 and 4, and especially Far Cry New Dawn, are representative of a Twilight 2000 game. 3 and 4 take place in failed states. There's nothing coming from the outside world. The guns are very patchwork. There's no going home in them because, the ships and airplanes and shit just don't travel there. And of course, Far Cry New Dawn is a post-apocalypse set game. It's just there's no military. Just lots of guns. Lots and lots of guns and people to protect. But the DOS game is probably, I would say it's probably really difficult to run. Unless it's on good old games now. There was a vehicle combat system because there are occasionally tanks you can drive around in Twilight 2000. Anyway, now it's time to talk about Paul's statement. I don't know about Ridley's opinion these days. I appreciate his work, but around Prometheus, he lost his vision. How gameable is Blade Runner? I'd sooner have a set of story games based on PKD's stories. Not a fan of story games, but I think some of PKD's stuff is very gameable. I think you could have fun with, but probably even Call of Cthulhu in some games. Just amp up the paranoia a lot in your games. Now, I'm not talking about like, mixing Call of Cthulhu with, just Radio Free Album Month. I'm just talking about using the COC rules and sanity checks and that sort of thing. That would factor very large. As far as Ridley goes, yeah, it's tough. I kind of agree. I think he's lost his way. Prometheus was shit. Covenant was shit. And let me give you an example of why. Just one of the things that, like, okay, what would you do if there was an alien loose? Covenant, or not Covenant, but Prometheus in the mission is a couple of dozen people. They are well armed. They have shotguns. They have semi-automatic rifles. They have flamethrowers. They're ready to rock and roll. And in one scene, rather than having just introduced another crew and just kind of tried to recreate the formula that worked well, there's just this ridiculous progression of all these people dying in the most idiotic way. You had Fifield, the the biologist who reaches out to touch the vagina cobra, you know, the little worm that grows up and then it grabs his arm, breaks it, causes a compound fracture, which tears through his suit, burrows into his suit, and then into him and kills. I mean, there's just so much stupid in those movies. And they talk about, oh, we're lost in the ship. You literally just mapped out the ship with these tennis ball drones. How could you be lost? You just created a massive digital map that gets referenced later as they're talking about, oh, we've lost track of Fitfield and these guys. And it's like, their radios only work when it's not convenient to. You've got Meredith Vickers dying because a spaceship squashes her. Because she can't run 20 feet to the left or to the right. When it's rolling like a jet. It's just ridiculous. And for him to say that the xenomorphs, you know, the xenomorphs were this unknown, unknowable, deep space terror that could have been drifting around in space in various forms and fashions millions of years before humanity even spawned. And now it's like, yeah, this crazy robot made them. What? David made xenomorphs. It's just silly. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, I'm kind of with you on the front of that. Now, I like Denis Villeneuve's work. I think Sicario is amazing. You guys should definitely check out Sicario. Don't watch it with your wives. It's a guy movie, is what I'm saying. It's a very, very guy movie. But Denis Villeneuve is very talented, and his work with Ridley Scott. I like Blade Runner 2049, and I won't back down from that. I thought Blade Runner 2049 was an absolutely worthy successor to Blade Runner. I consider the two as companion pieces. Is it perfect? No. Is it better than most of the other garbage ever made? Yeah. I would put... I think Blade Runner 2049 is great. But it may well be Ridley Scott's last good grasp, and it was mostly the work of Denis Villeneuve. Damon Lindelof. I'm not sure what the reference to Damon Lindelof is, but come back and tell us, Paul. Covenant is badass for your home theater system. I'll give it that. Yeah, you know, I got one of these days, Russ, I got to have you over here and you help me like tweak my home theater system. I may move it back here to the man cave because the family doesn't appreciate it. Just bring my amp. I've got like a kick-ass 90s style home theater system with a massive preamp and a subwoofer the size of like a block made out of 4 car batteries and wired satellite speakers and a center channel, all by Pioneer. It's a Pioneer amp and Yamaha satellites. Pro. Yeah, Damon Lindelof is okay. Now I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Blood Dragon was the best I won't argue that Blood Dragon was the best Far Cry game. Most of them are pretty good, the ones that I played, but yes, Blood Dragon, at the end, when you basically get to ride, it's like a chrome version of the Battle Cat from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe with laser beam eyes. You can literally not lose the last battle of the boss fight of Blood Dragon. The game is set up that like dying in the game is next to impossible. You are such a stupidly overpowered superhero in that game, and I love every minute of it. When you get the kill star. In fact, in the unlockable costumes in Far Cry New Dawn. One of them is your player model will basically, other than your face, look like the protagonist of Blood Dragon. You don't get the kill star though, which is unfortunate. Have I seen Arrival? No, I have not seen Arrival. Oh, no, I'm not going to talk about the new He-Man. Y'all don't want me to get that mad. Fucking Kevin Smith. He is a talentless hack. All right? If you're over there and you're like, oh, yeah, man, Snoochie Boochies, Clerks, Chasing Amy, Jersey Girl, blah, blah, blah. This ain't going to be for you. Kevin Smith had one funny movie. One funny movie. Repeating the same fucking joke, film after film, over and over and over again, hasn't been effective since the Three Stooges got old. Kevin Smith's ass got called out because people knew what he was going to do to He-Man. And he had a shit fit and sent his little Kevin Smith swarms after fans of the show. Now, I want to be clear about something. I don't give a toot about He-Man. That's not what this is about. He-Man was after me. All right. I was out of the action figure playing with stuff. I was interested in playing games on my Commodore 64 by that phase of the 90s. So He-Man, G.I. Joe, all the other properties that people rage about. Well, Paul, I'll check it out. Because like I said, I absolutely love Sicario. But then Dune. Anyway. So I'm not one of those people that feels, the honor of a show made to sell toys has to be defended. But here's the thing. I know there are people who like it. I know there are people who dig the fandom, okay? They knew a year and change ago that Kevin Smith was set to completely fuck up He-Man and the Masters of the Universe reboot. And he had a fit that people were calling him out on it. I love He-Man. I've been watching He-Man since 1981. It came out in 1984. I'll have I'm so proud of this project and everything. It came out and it was as bad as everybody said it was going to be. All right. Everybody was right. I just, the Kevin Smith worship, I don't get it. All right. A friend said, no, you have to watch the A Night with Kevin Smith things, go watch it. And I've tried to watch him and it's just a foul mouthed guy that hangs around a comic book store. Well, he has his own now. I literally just, God, I cannot express how unfunny I think he is. I watched the other Netflix He-Man, the one for kids while babysitting. It was entertaining, at least, that we now bestow some of the power grace. Yeah, I have no doubt. So funny this came up. I rewatched Clerk 2 the other night, and it had been so long since I'd laughed that hard. Donkey show scene, I had to pause it. I have seen Clerks, which I thought was good. I will tell you straight up, I thought Clerks was good. And I think the original ending of Clerks should have been the one that used it. It would have spared us a lot of this nonsense. I thought the original Clerks was good. It was a very much a movie of its time because I was a slacker too. All right. If I had had a job at 7-Eleven instead of Musicland, I probably would have been Dante. I wasn't even supposed to be here today. Never saw Clerks 2, saw Mallrats, saw Chasing Amy, and regretted it, and that's where I just stopped. I thought Chasing Amy was going to be legitimately funny and entertaining, and it wasn't. There's 2 funny parts in Chasing Amy. And yeah, both of them are the bits with the black comic book artist. And then I sat through bits and pieces of Kevin Smith flips a middle finger to anyone who believes in God. Whatever that movie was called. So I can't. I'm sorry. Kevin Smith was wittier when he was silent. Yes, very true. I wasn't a big fan of Strawberry Shortcake as a kid. I still think it would be unkind to the fans if it remade it as a woke turd. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Awig. Dogma. Yes, that's what I was trying to think of. Dogma. So, yeah, no, I'm not a fan of Kevin Smith. Again, I mean, I think Paul hit the nail on the head. Not a fan of Strawberry Shortcake as a kid. It would be unkind to the fans, you know? I mean, unkind to fans. I think that kind of sums it up. You know what I am a big fan of? Star Wars. All right? I've told this story before, and I'll tell it now. My old man took us to see Star Wars the weekend it came out, standing in the heat, 100-degree heat, in a line that stretched around the side of the Agricola Shopping Center Twin Theater in Gadsden, Alabama, waiting to get in and see Star Wars and loving it and not being able to stop talking about it till I got home. And Christmas of 78, what did I get? I got an X-Wing fighter and a box full of Star Wars figures. That was a lot because we were poor when I was a kid. We were not doing well in Gadsden, Alabama. So Dad basically dropped the equivalent of a few $100 on 8-year-old me. And the reason why he bought all that stuff for me, all the figures, well, most of the figures you could get, and an X-Wing fighter, was because when he was my age, he liked Buck Rogers. He liked Buck Rogers, and he wanted Buck Rogers toys, like, you know, Toy Rocket. And his old man, who was an evil old drunk, said, I'm not buying you that sissy shit. But my dad made sure that I had Star Wars toys when I was a kid growing up. And I'm looking at my X-Wing fighter right now, and on a shelf in another room is my Millennium Falcon. I should have that thing set up one day to show you guys. And I wasn't crazy about the prequels, okay? I thought they were kind of clumsy and ham-fisted, and I wish George had like Steven Spielberg come in and do them or edit them, or even though he was on the outs with Marcia, had her edit them like they did with Star Wars and made better movies out of them. You know, fucking council meetings for 10 minutes and shit. No, George. Midichlorians, that should have gone out. But they were recognizably Star Wars. The garbage, the utter shit that Kathleen Kennedy and her coterie of cultural vandals pushed out, that made me angry. That pissed me off. Because something that was a huge part of my childhood just got shit on. So I get it. I don't give a crap about He-Man, and I don't give a crap about Strawberry Shortcake, but I understand what it is to like something and to see somebody pave over it and say, this is just as good, but it's better because it's more diverse. Have I ever played Rifts? I'm interested in... Yes, I have, and I've actually played with Volcano God. Volcano God and I played Rifts, and So here's what we did. I really like, and I've talked to you guys before, and let me make sure I'm going to move the right way. Am I moving? No, of course I'm not moving the right way. I've talked to you guys before on a night show, actually, I think, about the Machining Krieger, the Kao Yokoyama, and I always thought that like a role-playing game set in that universe would be just the coolest thing in the world. And so when Rusty said, hey, do you want to play Rifts? I'll even let you play a Glitter Boy, haha. I said, hey, Rifts is like, you know, there's all this cross-dimensional stuff going on, right? And he was like, yeah, right. Hey, Ricky. Yes, Vinny, Rian Johnson did take a giant shot on the legacy of Luke Skywalker. I know what you mean, though. But so I said, hey, look, as long as we just treat it as, you know, I don't want anything special. I don't want like a special Mary Sue kind of thing. I just want to say that my Glitter Boy pilot is from this universe. He fell through a hole in space-time or something in one of the Machining Krieger SAFS space armored fighting suits, and otherwise the same as how it is in Rifts, because I just think that's a cool looking power armor suit. And Volcano God let me employ the rule of cool, and I was able to do that. And so we played Rifts for a few sessions, and I enjoyed it, and I didn't think it was difficult. So I'm gonna let Volcano God, if he's still listening or if he's still watching, I can honestly not remember if we were playing Rifts Savage Worlds or Rifts. I should have Volcano God on here one day just to talk about the Palladium role-playing system. He knows a lot about it. You know, Kevin's kind of a jerk, but a lot of people love the Palladium role-playing game system. And it didn't seem difficult to me. Rifts uses percent. See, I don't remember. I honestly don't remember how things went in our game. It was so it was Rifts by Palladium. We used the Palladium system, and I was okay with it. I was absolutely okay with it. I didn't have a problem. And when we had combat, which we actually didn't have much, I think we played like 4 or 5 sessions. It wasn't a long campaign, but it didn't seem particularly difficult. You've never heard of what, Ricky? Machining Krieger or Rifts, or both, or Star Wars, or He-Man, or Internet, or us, or reality? It's far too broad. I've never heard of molecules. Yeah, Vinny over on Facebook. I agree with you, buddy. I agree with you, even though you're not showing up on as a viewer. I can't stand how Facebook screws it. The metrics on Facebook and the metrics on YouTube are so screwy. So I'll wait for Ricky to come back and say what he hasn't heard of. But no, Volcano God and I had a pretty good time. I have wanted to run a Macross campaign. Yes, I said Macross, you plebs. Not Robotech. But a Macross campaign using the Palladium rule system for a while. Because it's all there. It's all in the rule book. Everything you need, you know. All the Veritechs, all the Destroids, all the Zentradi pods. Even just like ancillary systems like normal fighter jets that didn't get turned into Veritechs. Rifts, you dweeb. Wow, yeah. So this is we gotta get Volcano God on the show then to talk about Rifts. Because Rifts is well, thank you, Damien. You probably spared me like 30 minutes of rambling. And Volcano God he's got the right of it. Ricada said he played Macross too. Okay. Oh, see, Paul's gonna fuck around and find out playing in my Robotech pleb. Anyway. No, look, Damien's description there. It's a kitchen sink setting where dragons, mages, and power armor pilots can be on the same team. And because it uses the Palladium system, everything is compatible. You know? If you want to play a Rifts game where the Super Dimension Fortress Macross, not the Super Dimension Fortress Robotech, scrubs, anyway, finds itself in orbit over Rift's Earth for a day or two, and your Macross characters adventure down on Rift's Earth, or your Rift's characters find themselves teaming up with Roy Fokker and Rick Hunter and the rest, then that's a thing that can happen. That is a thing that can happen. Thoughts on BESM? Never played it. Never played BESM. I know of it, but I've never played it. I think somewhere in the Scott Rudder collection, may he rest in peace, somewhere in here I have Tri-Stat BESM, but I've never looked at it. I've never dug through to examine it and figure out what it might be. Fokker. Still in first edition, still making books. Reminds me of it. Okay. But Robotech, the role-playing game, the Palladium role-playing game, had the advantage of coming along when the big stompy robot suit genre was really taking off. And if you were a fan of both even if you weren't a fan of Battletech, you could get minis to play your Robotech game with just by getting the minis for Battletech, which at the time they had a license to make battle mechs, to make the miniatures for Battletech that were straight from Macross. Fokker barely. Oh, boo. Boo. I love it. But yeah, that's Palladium system. Well, I mean, I didn't explain much about Palladium system, but those are some of the touches of Palladium system. And they're not bad. They are not bad. I had fun with Rifts. I didn't find it difficult. But then I'm an AD&D gamer, and I think, I think Volcano God says it just right. It's incomprehensible. It's no different than AD&D in terms of complex rules. There's no universal mechanic, which I am okay with. I'm entirely okay. Now, I tell you another game that I like that I felt was like criminally underrated in terms of just, it's pretty difficult to master, but once you've got it going, it's very, very slick and fast moving, is Mekton from R. Talsorian. Mekton, the Mekton 2 rules plus the Mekton MTS supplement make for a very cool, very detailed, very greebly giant robot system. So if you don't want to play with the Rifts, if you don't want to play with the Palladium system rules, but you want something more complex and more flexible than what Battletech can bring in terms of giant robot games. Because mechs in Battletech are pretty ponderous, and you would either have to ignore certain things like heat and ridiculously short ranges. You have a particle beam weapon. Oh, well, I'm firing that in space. That should be able to just... as long as there's not an intervening planet, I should be able to hit you, right? No. No, it goes 10 hexes. Oh. At least the hexes in Aerotech, the air combat supplement for Battletech, the hexes are like 6,500 meters across. So even like a short-ranged autocannon 20 still can fire at like maximum like 60 kilometers. But yeah, if you were going to do Macross by way of Battletech rules, you would either have to just say, okay, guys, it's line of sight and treat everything as medium range and all the modifiers are on movement, or come up with some reason why a small laser can only fire 90 meters, why a machine gun is only good at 90 meters. A 20 millimeter machine gun can potentially tear through a Zentradi battle pod in the Macross setting. Battletech describes like the little anti-personnel machine guns that aren't much good past 90 meters as like 20 and 30 millimeter guns. So, oh my goodness. So if you guys had fun tonight, I've had a lot of fun tonight. Been going for about an hour and a half. And tomorrow we're going to be back to normal. We're going to be talking about more Greyhawk gods. And tomorrow we're going to look at some more deities in Greyhawk, but I want to very soon. I want to get into the Monster Manual, and even Monster Manual 2 and Fiend Folio, because there are deities in those. Loth, the book that Loth is statted, not the module, the book that Loth is fully statted in is Fiend Folio. She has stats in both Fiend Folio and deities and demigods. Let me clarify. So you can get her stats either way. But I want to look into the monster books and talk a little bit about it's mostly, most of the beings detailed in Monster Manual 2, and Fiend Folio are initimal evil beings. Cat Lord. We'll talk about Cat Lord. Thank you. But we'll look at them and just talk about them in the framework of the gods and demigods of Greyhawk, because as I have said before, when you are playing off-the-shelf vanilla AD&D, You have no specific setting yet. You haven't decided on a campaign world. You are playing Greyhawk D&D because first edition AD&D is infused with Greyhawk. Even if later you decide to shift gears, that first step out in AD&D, you're playing in a Greyhawk setting. So it's almost impossible not to step on something Greyhawk related. And I think looking at some of those demon lords, Cat Lord, and the very, very tiny number of not completely F you in the A until you're dead level of beings in Monster Manual 2 and Fiend Folio will be kind of interesting. And we might even revisit deities and demigods for some of that. But we are going to continue to talk about gods and demigods and heroes of Greyhawk. If you guys want to, if you're getting bored with it, if you're like sick of it, and I'm seeing like no participants, one participant, this video has 5 rewatches like a month after I do it. Maybe I'm not reaching you guys. But we'll figure it out then. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. And again, for those of you who came along a little bit later, Volcano God, Ricky, we are so close. So very, very close to 800 subs on the YouTube channel. 1,000 subs equals mini convention. I call it a mini convention because there's no like actual convention space. It'll just all be virtual. I mean, my initial thought of mini convention was that I would run games for like, part of a day. Like, 11 in the morning till 10 at night or something like that. And more people are telling me, no, you got to make it. It's got to be like an actual convention. So it may end up like, we start on Friday evening and don't wind up till Sunday evening or something like that. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what you guys do as far as, how you want to participate in that. So I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. I will see you guys all at Newen tomorrow. And we'll have fun again, at least I hope, and some interesting stuff and information. And yeah, thanks for stopping by today, guys. Thanks for stopping by tonight. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you again, as always, to Bards of Greyhawk. I keep getting distracted by stuff. I got to put the finishing touches on the intro credits things for the excellent piece of music that they made for me. Thank you for all of you who have signed up, who have clicked like. I appreciate it greatly. And stay cool and take care of each other. When I get to talking about Foltus, I'd love to jump. I run as clerics as Scientologists. I bet you do. I would love that. I would love it if you could jump on. And I want to get you on to talk about riffs too, VG. You got to come on and talk about riffs and virtual tabletops and Foltus. I will winnow out. Guys, what do you think? We'll have a weekend stream just for Volcano God, so he can't use the excuse of, I was gonna, but I had to work. So we'll do a weekend stream and just bring you on in just like 3 hours. An hour of Foltus, an hour of riffs, and an hour of virtual tabletop info. That's what we'll do to you. But anyway. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for being here. Peace.